Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I'm going to be showing you the top 10 cards, the most exciting cards from Fates Collide. This is the new Pokemon trading card game expansion. Now, my top 10 list recently, I've been doing some history ones. My top 10... as the set comes out, I've got a little bit behind, so I'm doing this nice and quickly. The set is just about to come out. It hasn't been officially released yet, so here comes my top 10. And because of that, some of the pictures we're going to have to use are of the Japanese cards. Please don't kill me for that. Please don't hate me for that. It is the only pictures to which I have access at the moment. So, the set's coming out very soon. Sit down, grab yourself a nice cold beverage, and enjoy as we take a look at the 10 most exciting cards from Fates Collide. So a quick note before we get going here, I'm going to be focusing on the 10 most exciting Pokemon cards coming out, not trainer cards. And the reason is I am not excited by the trainer cards coming out in this set. We are getting a reprint of N, which is going to be a very big card. That is a supporter card that allows you to shuffle both players. It makes them shuffle their hand into their decks and draw to the number of prizes they have remaining. So if your opponent has got one prize left and you've got 6 prizes left, you play an N, you hope they draw very, very little, and then you go on to win the game. It's also very good early game because it just refreshes you to a new hand of 6 cards. It's not terribly exciting because it's a reprint. Similarly, we've got Team Rocket's Handiwork. Flip 2 coins for each heads, discard 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. It's nice in a milling deck, it's flippy, it's going to see a little bit of play here and there, but I don't think it's as good a card as something like Delinquent, which, yes, it's not from the blah blah, it's still a better card in terms of if you want to slow your opponent down because of the certainty. Similarly, we've got Mega Catcher. It's a Lysander in trainer form, or a Pokemon catcher without a coin flip, which allows you to bring any Mega Pokemon from your opponent's bench into the active. Really, really, really good against Mega EX decks, but you know what? So is Faded Town, and how many people are still playing Faded Town? Devolution Spray is getting a reprint, which means you're going to be able to... The main reason to use Devolution Spray is to reuse the abilities of Pokemon as they come into play. Think something like Golbat or Crobat. But again, it'll see a little bit of play here and there. It's a reprint. I'm not terribly excited. As a side note, Chaos Tower. This is the stadium that means that one side of the board cannot be paralysed or asleep, and the other side cannot be poisoned or confused. I'm just not a huge fan of this. I don't think it's as good as Reverse Valley or Parallel City, the 2 ones we've had very much like this previously. I could be wrong, but there are other ways to get around special conditions. So, with all of that said, let's go for a couple of honourable mentions, starting off with my favourite card or set of cards in the entire set, the Reuniclus line. So let's go with this then. Each of them attack for 1 Psychic, 1 Colourless, but Dimension Valley is a thing that will reduce the attack cost of all Psychic Pokemon by 1 Colourless energy, so essentially they all attack for 1 Psychic energy. Solosis does 10 damage, but if there's another Solosis on the bench, it does 40 damage. 40 damage with a basic on turn 1, I like it. Duosion does 10 damage. If there's a Solosis on the bench, it does 30 more damage. Now we're up to 40. If there's a Duosion on your bench, it does 60 more damage. Now we're up to 100. 2 Duosion and a Solosis means you are doing 100 damage. 100 damage for a single energy. And Reuniclus keeps this going. Again, 1 Psychic energy, presuming you've got the stadium out. 10 damage. If there's a Solosis, 40 damage. If there's a Duosion, 100 damage. If there's a Reuniclus, 90 damage. Now, the ruling I am currently being told is that they do stack. I.e., now that I don't think you can get multiple Solosis and add 30 for each, although we'll need to wait for a ruling, but it means if you have on the bench a Solosis, a Duosion and a Reuniclus, then you have a Reuniclus in the active and you're doing 190 damage for a single energy. This, ladies and gentlemen, is ludicrous. If you can get these bad boys evolved nice and quickly, you are going to have an absolute field day. Now, the fact that they've got very weak HP, 30 on the basic, 90 on the stage 2, they are incredibly weak. Decks like Trevenant Break which spread 30 damage to all of your Pokemon, will absolutely destroy this. Similarly, things like Greninja that can do 30 damage to the bench with Greninja from X and Y, and 60 damage, well, to anywhere, with Greninja Break, will run through this deck very, very quickly. And you know what? Yeah, that's a bit of a bad thing, but I don't think there is any card as exciting and fun here as Reuniclus. I want to put him in the list, I just didn't have the heart to. But believe me, you'll see me at a League Challenge playing this sooner rather than later. My next honourable mention is Delphox. Now it's a Stage 2 Pokemon, which is lovely, and earned me brownie points when I sent my girlfriend a Delphox card when we first started courting. The word courting does not get used enough nowadays. And you can hear that story on PTCGRadio episode 200, my podcast. So Delphox has a nice attack, free colourless energy, 20 damage times the number of energy attached to all Pokemon. Yours and your opponent's, active and bench. Doesn't take a genius to figure out this could add up very, very quickly. Then you add the Delphox Break, who puts up to 180 HP on a non-EX one-prize Pokemon, and gives you an ability to search your deck for a fire energy and attach it to one of your fire Pokemon. You don't have to put down a damage counter to do so, as most of these abilities have in the past, and it's from your deck, so you know you're going to have the energy in there. Combine this with cards like Blacksmith to get a whole bunch of energy on the field quickly. It's slow. Delphox Break is essentially a Stage 3, but I genuinely believe that this could be a very, very viable deck. And the last honourable mention is Alakazam and Mega Alakazam. I'm not a huge fan of these, but they are the poster boys for the set. They are the Pokemon that are being pushed as mascots for the set, so I suppose I should give them a mention. Not a huge fan. Alakazam's got a fun ability that when you evolve him, you place 2 damage counters on your opponent's active, 3 on one of their bench. And for 1 Psychic, 1 Colourless, and again Dimension Valley comes into play here, Alakazam allows you to do 3 damage counters on each Pokemon that has energy on it, but then your opponent can play around that by not attaching energy. Although that does go back to the thing I say a lot on these videos: if your opponent is not attaching energy when they want to, just to spite you, that is a good thing for you. If they're slowing up their setup to try and spite you, that's a good thing. Mega Alakazam does 10 damage plus 30 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active, but it takes a little while. Now you can use cards like Golbat, who puts down 2 damage counters when you evolve, or Crobat, who puts down 3 when you evolve, to get these up and rolling, get enough damage on the field. But to be perfectly honest, ladies and gentlemen, I just think this is too slow. It's Psychic, which gives it weakness to Pumpkaboo and Night March, which is at the moment the best deck in the format. So weakness isn't there, and it's just not fast enough. Now, let's say for argument's sake you get the evolution, then you place 2 damage counters on the active. Then you get a Golbat down to place 4 damage counters on the active. Then you're doing 130 to put them onto 170 in total. Now that's pretty good. That will KO most EXs, pretty much all non-EXs. But in order to do that, you've got to have the evolution, and you've got to have the Golbat, and you've got to not be ability locked with cards like Hex Maniac, and you've got to have the Mega Evolution, and you've got to have the Stadium to make it a 1 energy attack. I'm not a fan, although I think some people will play it, and I think some people will have a little bit of luck with it. So coming in at number 10, there my honourable mentions done, Tyranitar. Now this was a pre-release promo, and he's pretty good. Now the attack, 150 damage, discard the top 2 cards of your deck, 50 more for each supporter card discarded in this way. Hit 1, 200, hit both, 250. It's a good attack, but of course you would generally just place Muscle Band on Tyranitar and hit for 170, which is generally what you're looking for. Now the ability here is Roar of Anger, and essentially when you evolve into Tyranitar, you may attach as many Dark Energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon as prize cards your opponent has taken. I.e., if they've taken 4 prize cards, you can attach 4 energy from the discard to Tyranitar and then manually attach to get to 5. If they've got 1 prize card remaining, then you can take 5 cards, energy cards from the discard, and attach them to Tyranitar. And that's pretty good. Whether it will end up seeing a lot of play, I don't know, because you need something to use in the early game. Maybe Tyranitar becomes a late game tech in other dark decks. But here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's an ability. So if your opponent, and you can't just get Tyranitar out from nowhere. So if they see a Larvitar or a Pupitar on your bench, and you go and they take their 5th prize, they can Hex Maniac, and then Tyranitar gets turned off. And almost every deck at the moment is playing Hex Maniac. So as much as it's a fun little card, I don't think it's going to see all that much use. Coming in at number 9, we have, well, a bunch of fossil Pokemon. I'm cheating a little bit. It's my list. I'm allowed. So starting off, we've got Omastar. Terrible attack, but his ability allows you to search for a restored Pokemon and put it onto your bench. Now this is very, very useful because fossil Pokemon are an absolute pain. You can't just bench them like you would a regular Pokemon. You have to use the fossil item card, at which point you can look at the bottom 7 cards of your deck, and if you find a restored Pokemon, the correct restored Pokemon that matches the item card, in the bottom 7 cards of your deck, you can put it on your bench, and that's a massive palaver. First, you've got to draw the item card, then you've got to find a restored Pokemon in the bottom 7 cards. It is a pain in the proverbial, ladies and gentlemen, he ain't no good. So what you do instead is you use Omastar's ability and you just search your deck and pop him on the bench. That's pretty good. Now, you're going to need something to put on the bench, and one of the things I might recommend is Aerodactyl. For a double colourless energy, he does 120 damage, and makes your opponent discard a special energy card attached to their active. That's pretty good. 120 damage is very nice. It will, for instance, one-hit KO something like a Shaymin EX, and it will allow you to discard a special energy, which can be really good against a whole bunch of decks, like, for instance, Mega Rayquaza. Because obviously if you KO them, you don't need to discard their energy, so Night March is out the window here. I don't think that's good enough to carry an entire deck. I think you might need some better attackers, but it's not a bad start. Omastar also has a break, which, like all breaks, up your HP from 120 to 140 in this case, and give you an ability or an attack. Here you have an ability, the wonderfully named Dangerous Tentacles, and it's just a Lysander, as long as it's a bench Pokemon EX. I.e., you get to choose an EX on your opponent's bench and bring it into the active. Now, clearly there is a lot of scope here to use Omastar to grab your Aerodactyl, Omastar Break to bring a Shaymin EX into the active, and then use Aerodactyl to KO the Shaymin. It is, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I don't know if that's going to carry a whole deck, mind you. I don't know that these fossil decks have a good enough attacker. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I happen to like this quite a lot. And I'm a little excited to see where this deck can go in the future. In at number 8, we have a card of a very unique ability, Marowak. Now, don't worry about the attack. The attack's pretty garbage. But the ability allows you to prevent all effects of attacks done to you or your hand by your opponent's Pokemon, and resist all existing effects. Now this is going to have some fun little things, but the main thing this is going to do, it is going to stop Seismitoad EX Trainer Locking you. Seismitoad EX's Trainer Lock, because it's not something like an ability, we've never been able to get rid of it once it's got on. It goes on, and for your turn, you cannot use trainers. There is nothing you can do about it. Well, now you can get out a Marowak, which means that Seismitoad EX's effect on the player, or the hand, that they cannot play item cards, goes away. And you would use this generally with Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick, the supporter card that allows you to play it only if it's the only card in your hand. Draw 5 cards, put a fighting Pokemon on your bench. You get Marowak in the discard, you play Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick, and all of a sudden, Seismitoad EX cannot beat you. Now there is a question as to how good Seismitoad EX is now and how good it is going to be in the future. It's already starting to see a downturn in play, but you know what, ladies and gentlemen? As long as it's seeing play, as long as it's in the format, it will see play. I genuinely believe that. And Marowak will be a nice little counter. It doesn't get any higher because Seismitoad doesn't get higher. But long story short, if Seismitoad becomes the best deck in the format, Marowak goes right up my list. Coming in at number 7, we have Mew. His ability allows you to use the attacks of each basic Pokemon in play. Now, this has a myriad of applications. It also suits... It's very much like old Mews, like Mew Prime, for instance. It's very much like those old cards, but it's going to be used for Night March. And you might be thinking, hang on a second, there's a lot of mentions of Night March 15 minutes into this video, and you would be right, ladies and gentlemen. But you know what? As it stands at the moment, Night March is the undisputed best deck in format in Standard, that is playing X and Y onwards, all sets from X and Y and later being legal for tournament play. So you know what? It deserves it. And what Mew allows you to do is put your Night Marches on your bench and attack with Mew, so that when you get your Mew KO'd, you don't have to lose a Night Marcher. Generally what you want to do is get as many Night Marchers as you need in the discard, but then you don't want any more KO'd, because then you've got to recover those Night Marchers from the discard in order to keep attacking. No such problem with Mew. You get Mew out, and then you can put 1 or 2 Night Marchers on your bench, and then you can just go ahead and smash. You don't lose any Night Marchers when Mew gets KO'd. The other huge bonus, of course, is that Mew can use Dimension Valley on Joltik's attack. I.e., you copy Joltik's Night March for 2 colourless energy, but you put Dimension Valley down. Mew being a psychic Pokemon means she can do Joltik's Night March for 1 colourless energy, and all of a sudden, that over-reliance on double colourless energy that Night March has been plagued by for so long is essentially gone. And unlike Mew EX, it doesn't give up 2 prizes. Now, there are other uses for Mew. I could probably sit here and do an hour-long video about it. Methinks we might get bored. That is going to be, for the time being, the primary use of Mew. But oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, there are plenty of opportunities for Mew to see more play in more ways in the future. Moving on up, we have at number 6. I'm cheating again, I'm giving a pair. They are Evolutions. Glaceon EX for a water and a double colourless does 70 damage, but prevents all damage done by evolved Pokemon. Now this might remind you of Jolteon EX, another Evolutions, which was released in the recent Generation set, which had the same attack but stopped basic Pokemon. Now yes, it takes a water and a double colourless to get Glaceon EX going, but don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that we have Max Elixir, which allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck, and if you find a basic energy there, you can attach it to one of your benched basic Pokemon. So you can use this to get Glaceon EX going a little bit faster. It can completely shut down evolution decks. Yes, they can use cards like Lysander to KO Pokemon on your bench, but you can get to the stage where all you've got is a Glaceon EX in play, and if your opponent is only playing evolved Pokemon, there is nothing they can do. Take a popular deck of mine, a deck that I like, that's seen a little bit of traction on this channel, my Garchomp deck. If I'm attacking with Garchomp and Glaceon EX comes out, Garchomp is locked out of the game. Well, okay, I can attack with a Hawlucha, and I can do 60 damage with Hawlucha, but then I can use things like Strong Energy, Fighting Stadium to do more. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Glaceon 1-hit KOs that Hawlucha. What you're going to do now? It is a very nice card indeed. And please don't say Lucario EX. I am still absolutely certain that Lucario EX is a bad play in Garchomp. We also have Umbreon EX, and we're using him for the second attack endgame. 70 damage, but if you KO a Mega Evolution, you take 2 extra prizes. You KO a Mega Evolved Pokemon with Umbreon EX, you take 4 prizes. Now, he only does 70 damage, although again, we can use things like Muscle Band, we can use Reverse Valley, etc, etc. But you have KO a Mega Pokemon, and then you finish with Umbreon for 4 prizes. And in Standard, you've got that Max Elixir card I just mentioned, but in Expanded, you've also got Dark Patch, which allows you to attach a basic Dark from your discard to Umbreon as long as he's on the bench. And you know what? It's probably going to be doable to get Umbreon out. You can drop him as a surprise. Hey, you know, oh, wait, Umbreon, 4 prizes. I really like Umbreon, and I think there are going to be some good Dark players out there in both Standard and Expanded who destroy Mega Evolved decks, Mega EX decks, by dropping Umbreon and smashing. Now you might think, well, hang on a second, how come Umbreon gets in at number 6 when that Mega Catcher, which also preyed on Mega EX decks, didn't even make the list? Well, the reason is, this is a one-card tech, which could also help for stability in the early game using Night Veil. 20 damage, discard as many cards as you like from your hand and draw an equal number of cards from your deck. It's not ideal, but if you've got a completely dead hand, it is not bad at all. And it's still a viable attacker, where, it still does 70 damage for free energy, which is not amazing, but it's not completely terrible. It's not good by any stretch. Mega Catcher, if you're not playing against a Mega EX deck, it is just a dead card in your hand that does literally nothing. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of the most difficult, and I've done top 10 lists for a bunch of sets, both in hindsight and as a history lesson. Now, when I do a history lesson, it's quite easy, because I can sit there and say, this is what was played, this is what was good. But this is a set preview. This set has not been used in tournament play yet. So here I am very much guessing, I am prognosticating. And the honest thing is, with this set, I am all over the place. I can look at these cards and say, I think they're good, I think they'll see play. But in terms of actually making a coherent top 10 list, I'm a little bit confused. So, especially from top 5, if you want to rearrange these, I'm fine with that. Now, I like my top 5. Some of you might put Mew higher, but until it has a really good use that isn't Night March, I'm not willing to. You could put Marowak higher, but until you find a format where Seismitoad is completely wrecking face, I don't want to. You could put Omastar higher, but until you find a really good other attacker than Aerodactyl, I'm not willing to. So bear in mind the order here, you could rearrange, and I probably wouldn't hate you too much. As always, if you want to, stick a complete top 10 in the comments, please. That way we can mock each other, and us Brits, we become friends by mocking each other. That's how it happens. Good nature, of course. It's got to be all in jest. Lucario comes in at number 5. And it's the second attack, Fight Alone. Metal and a colourless, 30 damage. If you have less Pokemon in play than your opponent, this attack does 60 more damage for each extra Pokemon your opponent has in play. So let's say you've got Lucario and a Bronzong, so that you can put that extra energy on Lucario, and your opponent has 5 Pokemon in play. Then you're doing 30 damage, plus 60 for each of those 3 extra he's got in play. That does 210 and KOs a Mega EX. Now, if you've just got Lucario and they've got 6 in play, you do 330. 6 times 5, 300, plus 30, 330. Now, firstly, this is going to be fun in terms of teaching all our kids maths, or if you're in the US, math. But to be perfectly honest, I can see this deck being played around. Firstly, Lucario takes 2 energy and is a stage 1, so you are not going to surprise your opponent here. Similarly, if you just have Lucario out and he gets KO'd, you lose the game. So you're going to want to have 2 or 3 Pokemon out, and your opponent can make sure that they try and match you, or even if they've got 1 more Pokemon out than you, it does 90 damage. I think Lucario has a huge amount of potential, and I think some people are going to play the deck really, really well. But for the time being, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sold enough on Lucario to put him any higher. At number 4, all the Carbinks. And I think I might have this wrong, but I really like numbers 1 to 3, so I don't know what to do here. There are 3 Carbinks in the set, and oh my goodness, I like them all. Up till now, we've only had Fairy Carbinks. Now Fighting Carbinks are coming out, and ladies and gentlemen, they mean business. Now, there are 2 regular Carbink. Now, we're not going through the attacks, they ain't good. One of them, this one, has the ability Energy Keeper. As long as this Pokemon is in play, your basic Pokemon's basic energy cannot be discarded by effects of your opponent's attacks, abilities, or trainers. So something like a Crawdon that would use the ability to discard energy, can't. Something like Crushing Hammer, a trainer that would discard energies, can't. And any ability that would discard energy, can't. Now, it's only basic Pokemon, and it's only basic energy, but it's not just Carbink. It's all of your basic Pokemon and all of the basic energy. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, as you are going to see as we go through, these fighting Pokemon are about to get good, and it's largely basic. I like this Carbink. Everybody who plays fighting decks really should be playing one of those Carbink. Did I mention, ladies and gentlemen, it's a basic Pokemon. You search it out, you put it on your bench, Crushing Hammer and all those things don't do anything. But the Carbink you want to use is this one. It has the ability Safeguard. This is not a new ability, it's an ability that's been on many Pokemon. You prevent all effective attacks, including damage done to this Carbink by Pokemon EX. Okay, but in order for this to be good, you've got to have a good attack, and as I've just said, both these Carbinks have terrible attacks. Don't you worry your pretty little head, ladies and gentlemen, because Carbink has a break, and you can use Wally on turn 1 to break evolve Carbink into Carbink Break, and he gains an attack. Diamond Gift. 20 damage, attach 2 energy cards from your discard pile to one of your benched fighting Pokemon. And just like Garchomp, it says energy cards, not basic energy cards. And oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge, huge difference. The reason is strong energy. You can attach 2 strong energy in one turn to a bench Pokemon with 1 attack from a Carbink who cannot be attacked or damaged, well, it can be attacked but not damaged, by any EX Pokemon. That's ludicrous! You can use something like a Battle Compressor to discard a couple of strong energy, and then you can use Wally to evolve, and then turn 1, you get to use Carbink to attach 2 strong energy on the first turn of the game. You attach 1 energy to Carbink, and then 2 strong to one of your bench Pokemon. That is utterly ludicrous. All 3 of these Carbinks are going to see play. In pretty much all of these fighting decks, you're going to see a couple of the Safeguard Carbink. You're probably going to see 1 of the Break because people are going to try and Wally into it, maybe 2. And you're going to see 1 of the Carbink that stops all of your basic fighting Pokemon from having their energy discarded. I love these Carbinks. And when I'd write my notes for this video, and at number 3, I literally wrote all the Carbinks. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I love all of the Carbinks. And anyone who follows my podcast, PTCGRadio, or this channel, coincidentally also called PTCGRadio, will know that I love my fighting decks. And Carbink, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, he gets me excited. At number 3, a card that could completely wreck the format or be one of these cards that looks good and never sees play, we don't know. Barbacle, or Barbaracle. I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't really care. The point is, he has got a terrible attack, although it has a smiley face, which makes me happy, and an ability Hand Block. Your opponent cannot attach any special energies from his or her hand. Now, Carbink Break says, ha, in your face, I'm attaching it from the discard using my attack. But it means that any deck that relies on stuff like double colorless energy cannot use it. And yes, Barbaracle is a stage 1, but Archie's Ace in the Hole, not unlike Maxie's that we talked about earlier, will allow you to put Barbaracle on the bench as early as turn 1, as if it were a basic Pokemon. And then your opponent is locked out of special energy for the game. Decks like Mega Rayquaza that rely on double colorless, Bad News Bears. Decks like Night March that, well, without Mew, rely on double colorless, Bad News Bears. You see where I'm going with this. It's really, really good. Playing a fighting deck but don't want your opponent's Manectric to use flash energy to get rid of their weakness? Archie's Ace in the Hole, Barbaracle, there we go. I love Barbaracle. I think it's going to see a lot of play. Without Archie's Ace in the Hole, I don't think it would be terribly good. With Archie's Ace in the Hole, it's pretty gosh darn nice. In at number 2, a card that I wanted to put at number 1, but I couldn't put at number 1. Regirock. Now, I've done a couple videos recently about Regirock. I did my video where I explained my expanded deck with the Regirock promo, which has been a very popular video. I uploaded a video playing that Regirock deck in a recent regional championship against a world player with an Evil Tau deck. That's just a couple videos back, and soon I'll be giving you my deck list for that Regirock video. I also used Regirock in my Donphan Prime deck that I took to Top Cut at UK Nationals, and I'm just a big Regirock fan. He's the best of the Reggies, other than Regigigas. Let's not be silly about this. Regirock EX is another one of those Regirock cards that is going to see play from people, including me. And the attack is terrible, and it's got a retreat cost of 3, which makes it a Lysander target, and blah, blah, blah. People are going to try and stick it in the active and buy themselves some time. But his ability is basically exactly like that of Deoxys EX. And Deoxys EX saw an awful lot of play. Add 10 damage to each attack from your fighting Pokemon. To the active, not to the bench. And this stacks 4 Reggies, 4 extra damage. It is utterly, utterly redonkulous, ladies and gentlemen. Utterly redonkulous. And I use the word redonkulous because Donks, knocking out your opponent's only Pokemon on the first turn of the game, is going to be a lot easier with cards like Regirock CX. Regirock CX? Regirock EX. There we go, I think that sounded nice and stern at the end there. Coming in at number 1, Zygarde. And I'm an old school Pokemon fan. I have been playing Pokemon since the games Red and Blue came out. I liked it in Black and White when Reshiram and Zekrom came out and Pokemon were like, hey, so Black and White is Reshiram and Zekrom. Here are the 2 best cards in a trading card game. They're Reshiram and Zekrom. And here they're like, hey, there's a new legendary. It's Zygarde. He's the best card. Now, I don't know if he's the best card in the game. That's quite a statement. It's a very bold statement indeed. But my point is, ladies and gentlemen, that Zygarde is a very, very good card. And you know what? He's the new legendary. He should be. 3 attacks, all of which are good. 1 fighting energy, 20 damage, 40 if there's a stadium in play. 2 energy, 60 damage and heal 30. 3 energy, 100 damage. And then, of course, you can use cards like Regirock, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium, and Strong Energy to get up to, frankly, ludicrous numbers. I might actually do a video shortly about how you can hit those numbers with Zygarde. Point is, it's good. It's very good. Oh, what's that? That's not enough. Those 3 attacks aren't good enough for you. You want a better attack. You want an attack that can just plain KO all of these EX Pokemon with no worry. Hey, Power Memory says hello. It is a tool not unlike G-Booster from the old Virizion Genesect deck. It's an extra attack. You attach it as a tool to Zygarde, you get an extra attack, 3 energy, 200 damage, and let's not forget that cards like Regirock and Strong Energy and Fighting Stadium will easily allow you to get up to 1-hit KO Mega EX Pokemon. It's not going to be an issue. And it's not an ace spec, so you can have 4 of these in your deck. It is frankly ridiculous. Oh, you have to discard 3 energy attached to this Pokemon. Well, when you've got cards like Max Elixir and Carbink Break in the format, getting 3 energy onto Zygarde is not going to be a particularly difficult task. Zygarde has the potential to be an almost annoying best deck in the format to the stage where it's not even funny, and that's how he comes in at number 1. Now, this video has gone on slightly longer than anticipated, but honestly, ladies and gentlemen, Fates Collide is an exciting set. I think it's one of the most exciting sets we've had in a while. I love cards like Reuniclus, but I think cards like Zygarde and Regirock are going to completely change our format. And with the amount of fighting decks I've played this year, you know what? I say this year, since I started playing, I am all in, ladies and gentlemen. I am all in. Now, you know the deal. Click that like button. It will take you but a second, and it will make me feel happy on my insides. If you don't click the like button, I'm going to assume you hate me on a personal level. I like to think I'm a lovable guy. Why do you hate me? Make sure you click that subscribe button, and if you have already done so, get a friend to do so on your behalf. We've passed 3,000, but we're still a long way from 100,000, and that's my goal, ladies and gentlemen. I believe in us. And of course, if you've got anything to say about this set, cards you think that I missed, cards you think I underrated, cards you think I overrated, or your own top 10 list, stick them down in the comment section. That's what it's there for. And of course, the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.